students, this session we are going to discuss about the pathology MCQs asked in your NEET PG 2022 exams. This year around 11 MCQs were asked from pathology, and out of which general pathology there were 4 questions. Surprisingly, out of these 4 questions, 2 questions were from aging. Imagine 2 questions from aging in the same paper. Then hemat, as usual, 50% of the questions were from hemat. Systemic, there were only 2 questions, and 2 questions primarily from your kidney chapter. Kidney remains to be their favorite chapter. So let's try to dissect, discuss and dominate each question. So beginning with the first question, which of the following statements about telomerase theory of aging is correct? So what do we know about the telomerase theory? We all know that decreased telomerase length is associated with aging, right? So by this theory, which option is correct? Option A is correct. So option B, incorrect. Obviously, increased telomerase is not associated with aging, right? Then telomerase instability is associated with aging, not stability. So option B, option C, both incorrect. Option D, abnormal telomerase activation is associated with aging. Again, this is incorrect. It is not associated with aging. It is associated with your cancer pathogenesis. So only decreased telomerase length is associated with aging. I hope it is clear. Let's move on to the next question. A child presents with frequent chest infection and abdominal pain. The history includes 1 previous blood transfusion. So, on physical examination, the child has jaundice, mild splenomegaly. Laboratory tests show elevated HbA2, HbF and S spike on electrophoresis. What is the most likely diagnosis? They have given you the diagnosis in your question itself. Chest infection, abdominal pain, 1 previous blood transfusion. Even if it is not clear, child has jaundice, mild splenomegaly. Typical finding they have given you is there is S spike on electrophoresis. If there is an S spike, what is the answer? Yes, it is your sickle cell disease. Please, HbA2, HbF will be present on sickle cell trait, but S spike is indicative of sickle cell trait or the sickle cell disease. Clear? Why is it not HBC? HBC mein you will see a C spike. Okay, not an S spike. Beta thalassemia again you will not see an S spike. So it is not beta thalassemia. You will see HbA2 elevated, HbF elevated, but S spike will not be there in beta thalassemia. Clear? Acute coronary disease, nothing to do with electrophoresis, right? I hope it is clear. Just because there is an S spike, it has to be sickle cell disease. Now, what do we know about the hemoglobin electrophoresis? What is hemoglobin electrophoresis? What does it signify? It basically signifies the mobilization of the normal hemoglobin and the hemoglobin variants in your various disorders. So, this is your cathode, origin, anode. What did I tell you earlier? How will you remember which hemoglobin comes where? Please remember from anode to cathode. I will once again repeat, from anode to cathode. What will you say? A fat Santa Claus arrives. Okay, a fat Santa Claus arrives. A, from anode to cathode, please remember, anode to cathode, a fat Santa Claus arrives. A is your hemoglobin A here, then F is your hemoglobin F, S is your hemoglobin S, then C and A2 comes here. C and A2 comes here. Arrives. Who arrives? The CEO arrives. Okay, A2 arrives, then CEO. So A2 CEO come together at this place. Clear? I hope you will remember. Now, we also have unstable hemoglobins like hemoglobin H and hemoglobin BART, which will very quickly move from the place of origin towards the anode. So, our mnemonic can now change hey baby, because Santa Claus is favorite of babies. So, it is hey baby, hemoglobin H, hemoglobin BART, hemoglobin 8, hemoglobin F, hemoglobin S, hemoglobin C, A2CEO, right? A2CEO. So, hey baby, a fat Santa Claus arrives at the CEO. So, this is your hemoglobin H, BART, hemoglobin A, F, S, A2, CEO. I hope it is clear. Just remember, anode to cathode, hey baby, a fat Santa Claus arrives. Arrives, CEO. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Why do neoplastic cells rely on Warburg metabolism? Now, can anybody tell me what is this Warburg metabolism? Okay, Warburg metabolism is basically in cancer neoplasia, there is preference of aerobic glycolysis by the cancer cells over your oxidative phosphorylation, even in the presence of oxygen. So, there is preference of aerobic glycolysis over oxidative phosphorylation. Even in the presence of oxygen. What happens in this? This shift allows the neoplastic cells to rapidly use up your glucose, producing less amount of ATP and producing more intermediates that are necessary for your cancer cell growth and survival. What are the intermediates that are necessary? Your lipids, nucleotides, amino acids, which are necessary for cancer cell growth and survival. So, now let's come to the options. It produces metabolic intermediates essential for growth and proliferation. Yes, the Warburg metabolism does produce intermediate metabolic essentials for cell growth and proliferation. It reduces glucose utilization? No, it increases. What did I just say? It rapidly increases glucose utilization. So, this is incorrect. It increases ATP production? No, it reduces ATP production because there is aerobic glycolysis. It prevents apoptosis and contributes to the immortality of cancer cells? No, Warburg metabolism does not contribute to the immortality of cancer cell. It is because of the mutations of your tumor suppressor gene, there is immortality of a cancer cells and apoptosis is prevented, not because of Warburg metabolism. Okay, so this is also incorrect. So, A is the correct answer. Let's move on to the next question. An elderly patient presents with anemia, hemoglobinuria. Investigations showed elevated LDH levels. Based on the peripheral smear provided, which of the following physical examination findings would support the likely diagnosis? Now, what do you see in the peripheral smears? What are these cells? Can anybody tell me what are these cells? These are your schistocytes. Very clearly shown, these are schistocytes. So, what could be the answer here? Goiter, unlikely, not related to the presence of schistocytes. Splenomegaly, again schistocytes will not be seen. Frontal bossing, probably they are talking about thalassemia. Again, schistocytes will not be seen in thalassemia. It will be seen in mechanical second heart valve. Mechanical heart valves. Why? Because of the sheer stress of the blood flow, turbulent blood flow causes the shape change of the RBCs to become schistocytes. What is this example of which type of anemia? It's your microangiopathic hemolytic anemia where you see schistocytes. Okay, clear? Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following statement about neutrophil extracellular traps is not correct? Now, is it mitochondrial DNA? Neutrophil extracellular taps are detected in blood during sepsis. They are produced in response to bacterial infection. They consist of chromatin with antibacterial enzymes. For this, we need to know what are the neutrophil extracellular traps or your nets. See, these neutrophil extracellular traps or nets are basically web-like structure or traps primarily composed of nuclear DNA, antibacterial enzymes, antibacterial proteins, and enzymes released from neutrophils, particularly elastases, in the setting of bacterial infection primarily, but could be fungal infection also, but primarily it is bacterial infection. So it comprises of your nuclear DNA, antibacterial proteins, and enzymes released from the neutrophils. The neutrophils in fact die in this process. So which is the incorrect option here? Very clearly it is shown mitochondrial DNA is not seen. In fact, it is your nuclear DNA and not mitochondrial DNA. So this is the incorrect option. The nets are detected in blood during sepsis. Yes, it is true. They are produced in response to bacterial infection. Yes, primarily bacterial infection, but could be also due to fungal infection. Then consists of chromatin with antibacterial enzymes. Again, this is true. So the incorrect option is mitochondrial DNA is not seen, right? So let's move on to the next question. Which of the following measures is associated with increased lifespan? Okay, this is your second question on aging. Which of the following measures is associated with increased lifespan? Before looking into the options, please let's quickly revise the theory of senescence. This is your normal cell. This is your senescent cell. Now, what are the factors responsible for aging? First of all, telomerase shortening, we have already studied. Reduced telomerase length is associated with aging. Then free radical theory of aging, mitochondrial dysfunction, DNA damage, altered gene expression, reduced autophagy, and activation of your tumor suppressor genes. Plus, that is, if you reduce the calories, the senescence would be delayed or aging would be delayed. Now, let's come at the option. Decreasing caloric intake by 30%, moderate regular exercise for 30 minutes, decreased stress, pharmacological intervention with proton pump inhibitors. So, we've seen the diagram. It is your decreased caloric intake by 30% increases the lifespan. Okay, clear? Now, a 56-year-old man with COVID-19 who was on mechanical ventilation passed away after a week. What is the likely post-mortem lung change observed? So, whether it is perivascular cuffing, thick layer of fibrin lining the alveoli, acute and chronic alveolar hemorrhage, pulmonary artery hypertrophy with increased resistance. So what do we know about COVID-19, especially in a patient who was on mechanical ventilation? Patient on COVID-19 post mechanical ventilation, what is the most likely finding that you are going to see? It will be your diffuse alveolar damage. And in this diffuse alveolar damage, you will see a thick layer of fibrin and hyaline surrounding the alveoli. Okay, thick layer of fibrin and hyaline surrounding the alveoli because of diffuse alveolar damage. And this diffuse alveolar damage is due to chronic inflammatory and thrombotic response. Chronic inflammatory and thrombotic response because of COVID-19 induced ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, right? We see diffuse alveolar damage, which is because of a thick alveolar lining of fibrin and hyaline, and it is caused by chronic inflammatory and thrombotic response because of COVID-19 induced respiratory distress. So what is the correct option here? Correct option is B. You will see a thick fibrin lining the alveoli. Perivascular coughing, you will see it in chronic inflammatory conditions. Acute and chronic alveolar hemorrhages, again it will be seen in COVID-19 patients, but that will not be the defining feature. It will not be the defining feature of COVID-19. It will be present, right? Pulmonary artery hypertrophy with increased resistance, where will you see? Pulmonary hypertension. Okay, so the correct answer is we see diffuse alveolar damage because of thick layer of fibrin and hyaline lining the alveoli. Alright, let's move on. Okay, kidney, they usually asked weird questions. Now, although it might be simple because you see the histopathology and you will be able to identify that particular characteristic finding which can indicate the diagnosis. But what is that finding? It is, what do you see? Do you see Michaelis-Guttman bodies? Okay, and macrophages, abundant granular macrophages. So your diagnosis is malacoplakia. Okay, plus you see yellowish white plaques also, trigone of the bladder. So the diagnosis is malacoplakia. Now what is malacoplakia? It's a chronic inflammatory condition caused by a defect in the phagocytes. There's a defect in the phagocytes. Chronic inflammatory condition, usually in the setting of primarily bacterial infections. Which one? E. coli and Proteus. Commonly seen in immunosuppression, in immunosuppressive therapy, and patients on renal transplants. So the answer is malacoplakia. Now what do you see in histopathology? You see abundant granular macrophages because of granular debris of the bacteria. Additionally, what do you see? Calcium is deposited in your enlarged lysosomes and there is artifactual clearing around the cells. What is this known as? This is known as your Michaelis-Guttman bodies. So very characteristic, seen in your pus stain. Okay, so the answer here is malacoplakia, right? Let's move on to the next question. A female patient presents with fatigue and a history of piles. So fatigue, history of piles. The routine complete blood count shows hemoglobin 9, MCV 60, RBC 5.2 million. Given the peripheral smear finding, what is the most appropriate next step of investigation? Okay, whether you will do serum ferritin, serum folate, serum homocysteine level, HbA2 levels. So, seeing the history, that history of piles, hemoglobin 9, see hemoglobin 9, MCV 60 and RBC 5.2 million. And the peripheral blood picture, you see microcytic hypochromic cells. So this is a case of microcytic hypochromic anemia. Till here it is very simple, right? So the two options are out of question. Folate level, serum homocysteine level, it is out of question. It is not a macrocytic anemia. It's a microcytic anemia. Now, the other two options, very tricky. Serum ferritin or HbA2 level. What will you do? See, some people have given the answer as serum ferritin level. Some people have given the answer as HbA2 level. If you ask me, the diagnosis, I would still consider it as iron deficiency anemia. Okay, iron deficiency anemia. Why? Because patient has a history of piles. My next appropriate investigation would be serum ferritin. Only if my serum ferritin levels are normal, then I will go to HbA2. to rule out whether it is a beta thalassemia patient or not. But my next best step of investigation would be serum ferritin. There are other school of thoughts which say you directly do HbA2 level. Why? Can anybody tell me why directly HbA2 level? What have we studied? How to differentiate iron deficiency anemia from thalassemia? Which index was important? It was your Menser index. Menser index. What is it? MCV upon RBC. Here it is 60 divided by 5.2. It will come to around 11.5. Okay, what had we studied? If the Menser index was less than 13, it indicated of beta thalassemia. And if it was more than 13, it indicated of iron deficiency anemia. So here, although your Menser index is coming less than 13, it's coming 11, but I would still suggest that the next best appropriate investigation should be serum ferritin, because you have a clear-cut history of blood loss. Okay, and HbA2 level definitely will be done. In fact, both should be done, but the first investigation should be serum ferritin followed by HbA2. I hope it is clear. Okay, what are the microcytic hypochromic anemia that we know of? Okay, what is the traditional mnemonic that we've studied for microcytic hypochromic anemia? That is your SITA mnemonic. Sideroblastic anemia, iron deficiency anemia, thalassemia, and anemia of chronic disorders. Nobody should forget this, the microcytic hypochromic anemias, the SITA anemias, okay, never to be forgotten. Then what are the macrocytic anemias that we have studied? For macrocytic anemias, what was the mnemonic? It was A, B, C, D, E, F, right? A is alcohol and liver disorders. B is your vitamin B12 deficiency. C is compensatory erythropoiesis. D is drugs, the cytotoxic drugs. E is endocrinopathies like hypothyroidism. And F is your folate deficiency. Very clear? So, SITA for microcytic hypochromic, A, B, C, D, E, F for your macrocytic anemias. Clear? Let's move on. A 56-year-old man presents with abdominal dragging pain and massive splenomegaly. His peripheral smear shows leukocytosis with increased myelocytes, metamyelocytes, basophils. Which of the following translocation is associated with this condition? Very simple. Characteristic history, dragging abdominal pain, dragging as if something is dragging in the abdomen. What is this because of? Massive splenomegaly. Then there is leukocytosis, increased myelocyte, metamyelocyte, and which characteristic cell? Basophil. So what is your diagnosis? Your diagnosis is, yes, very good, it is CML, and in CML you see translocation 922. Clear? Straightforward question. So your correct answer is translocation 922, right? Quickly revising, where do you see translocation 814? Yes, you see it in follicular lymphoma. Translocation 1517 seen in AML M3. What is this translocation? PML RARA. Translocation 821 AML M2. What is this translocation? RUNX1 and RUNX T1. Okay, clear? So the correct answer here is CML, and you see translocation 922, right? So with this, we come to the end of this session. Please remember, each MCQ is like a puzzle. You have to fit in every piece together to get the correct answer. Thank you. Happy studying.